Could the Red Sox still win the AL East, and what would it take for them to actually get there? What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corbin, and thank you very much for clicking on the video today. Last night was kind of a wild game, wasn't it? I don't know if this really has much to do with the actual video we're talking about today. I just needed to talk about how good this game was for the Red Sox. I mean, they were absolutely shut down by Sandy Alcantara for what? Most of that game, only for Giolito to kind of match Sandy. I mean, there was a lot more traffic on the base pass, but in the box score, he only allowed one run as well, just to set up Fenway Park to absolutely rattle that poor Marlins pitcher and set up Trevor Story to win that game. Absolutely crazy. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but in those green jerseys, the Red Sox have 5 wins. Of those 5 wins, every single one of them is a walk-off. There is some sort of walk-off magic in those green jerseys, and it got me thinking a little bit, right? A little bit of magic last night at Fenway Park, just absolutely rattling in a pitcher. You know, playoffs are fantastic, and ultimately that should be the goal of this Red Sox team, get into the postseason any way they possibly can. And I think for now, the wild card is still the best route for the Red Sox to actually do that. But what about the division? We've been focused so much on the wild card. Is it possible for the Red Sox to win a division this season, and how would they actually get there? But there are 2 questions we need to ask. Is it possible, and what does the route actually look like? And the first question here of whether or not it's possible, the answer is yes. The answer is always going to be yes until they're actually mathematically eliminated from being able to win a division. So that one's kind of a cop-out answer. A better question to ask or pose to you guys is, how likely is it for the Red Sox to win this division? And we actually do have some statistical evidence that can back that up, because both Fangraphs and Baseball Reference put out their sort of projected rest of the way odds of whether or not a team's going to be able to make the postseason, whether they're going to be able to win a wild card, win a division, whatever. You guys know what I'm talking about here. And both of them have interesting odds for the Red Sox here. On Fangraphs, they currently have a 77.4% chance of actually going to the postseason, but they only have a 6.2% chance of winning the division. Over on Baseball Reference, on the other hand, they're much higher on what the Red Sox could potentially do here down the stretch. According to Baseball Reference, they have a 92.6% chance of reaching October, but a 21.5% chance of winning the division. Now, honestly, I'm not too sure which one's more accurate. The one that's more commonly referenced is that Fangraphs one, so it's probably a bit more on the Fangraphs side than it is on the Baseball Reference side, just simply based on what people refer to when they're talking about playoff odds. So we could potentially go with the Fangraphs route. We could potentially go with the Baseball Reference route. For this video, we're just going to simply kind of split the difference, and the dead middle between those 2 numbers is about a 13.85% chance the Red Sox actually pull something like this off. Not exactly great odds here, but it's not exactly zero either. So the question becomes, okay, now that we know it's possible, now that we know what the odds are, what is it actually going to take for the Red Sox to do this? To really figure this out, we got to start with where the Red Sox are currently at right now. Currently on the season, the Red Sox are in 2nd place in the AL East. They're also 5 games back of the Toronto Blue Jays, who are kind of playing like a juggernaut right now, right? They got, what, a top 3 record in the entire sport. They're absolutely kind of going crazy, and it feels like they're never winning. So for the Red Sox, what that means is one of 2 things are going to need to happen. Either the rest of the way, the Red Sox maintain what their record is right now all the way through the end of the season, and the Blue Jays end up losing 6 more games than the Red Sox do down the stretch here, or the opposite, right? The Blue Jays end up keeping the same pace, but the Red Sox, they come in and they win 6 more games than the Toronto Blue Jays. And again, it's not going to be easy to do this, right? I don't want you guys sitting here thinking that I'm saying there's no doubt in my mind the Red Sox are winning the division here, but there are a couple of things that could potentially help the Red Sox out in getting to that kind of conversation when we're sitting here saying, is there a chance the Red Sox could win the division? The first thing is the Red Sox strength of schedule. Now, for a while, the Red Sox strength of schedule has been really kind of a hindrance on this Red Sox team, right? Coming out of the All-Star break, they had the #1 hardest schedule in Major League Baseball. I mean, think about the teams they just played over the last, month and a half here. It's been teams like the Cubs, Phillies, Dodgers, Astros, right? You've been constantly playing legitimate division contenders and a lot of division winners as well. You even had the Padres mixed in there. You had a lot of teams here who were not only above 500, but ultimately had a better record than you, and you survived those. So going forward, it gets a whole lot easier. And I say easy with a really big grain of salt because I do genuinely hate when people are like, oh, the Red Sox schedule is easy. They should cakewalk into a postseason. That's not entirely how baseball works, right? Some of these teams are really tricky, while some of these teams, they may not have a good record, but they play the Red Sox really well. It's baseball. There's 162 of these things. Anything can happen. So I always hate when we're relying on the Red Sox having an easy schedule to propel them to a position, but that's just simply the reality right now. In fact, according to a few different sources here, going forward till the end of the season, which is 39 games, the Boston Red Sox have the 5th easiest schedule in the sport, at least when it comes to opponents' win and losses. Now, what's interesting is the Yankees, who, we haven't really talked about so far in this video, but could ultimately be a threat to the Red Sox winning the division, have the 4th easiest. So that's something to pay attention to for sure. But on the other hand, the Toronto Blue Jays, they're sitting there with the 9th hardest schedule left in the entire sport. Again, according to teams' wins and losses that they are playing throughout the rest of the season. It makes it just that tiny little bit amount easier for the Red Sox to find a way to figure out how to win 6 more games than the Blue Jays over these next 39 games, right? And so you sit there with that and you're like, okay, you know what? Between now and the last week of the season, the Red Sox do not play a team, at least at this point in time, right? You've got the Guardians, you've got the Yankees in there. They're very close to your record, but at this point in time, you are not facing a team with a better record than you the rest of the way until that last week of the season, where you do end up playing both the Blue Jays and the Detroit Tigers to finish out 2025, and that is where my second point lies. Because my second point here is, while between now and the last week of the season, the Red Sox, they've got a really interesting schedule in terms of how it favors them coming into a postseason. But those last 6 games are going to be incredibly vital, or at least right now at this time, they're going to be incredibly vital, because what they end up doing is they go to Toronto for 3 games, and they come back home and they face Detroit for 3 games to finish out the 2025 season. So that conversation we've been having of how do the Red Sox win 6 more games than the Blue Jays, how do the Blue Jays lose 6 more games than the Red Sox, becomes very, very interesting, right? Because if you can get to a point where you're going into Toronto within striking distance of the Toronto Blue Jays, let's say 2, let's say a game back, all of a sudden the entire season is essentially figured out in those 3 games. The Red Sox can ultimately take the outside factors out of this, right? They could take out the sort of dumb luck that they're going to need to get in there. They could take out the idea of relying on other teams to beat the Blue Jays when they themselves can be the ones to put themselves in that position. It's a really unique opportunity, right? You don't get a ton of opportunities here to finish out your season against the team that you're trying to beat. So while we sit here and we say, hey, they need to win 6 more games than the Blue Jays here, either via Blue Jays tumbling or the Red Sox exploding, reality is they really need to win 4 or 5, right? If you win 4, you could ultimately get within a game of the Toronto Blue Jays, and then ultimately you have to win that series against the Tigers, which isn't going to be easy, right? None of this is going to be easy. I'm not sitting here saying, again, that there's a cakewalk path to the Red Sox winning the division, just simply saying that it's possible. And if the Red Sox can get within striking distance of the Blue Jays, they set themselves up to ultimately decide their own fate. They don't need to rely on anyone else, and that is a possibility, right? Because we go back to, okay, instead of 6 games needing to be won, let's say they need to win 4 or 5 more games than the Toronto Blue Jays between now and that series, which is 33 games. Well, in that time span, again, this is why the strength of schedule is so important. They play 19 games against teams that are sub 500 on the year. That's one thing the Red Sox have done really well this season. And knock on wood, I don't want to mess anything up, because for the love of God, every time I say something like this, the Red Sox end up doing the exact opposite, but they've been able to play above their competition this year. And it's a big reason why this team has felt so much different than the last couple of teams over the last couple of years, right? In 23 and 24, it felt like, okay, the Red Sox are a good team when they play good teams, but when they play bad teams, they play down to their competition. Well, this season, against sub 500 teams, they're 37 and 19. That's a 660 winning percentage. And those 19 games, games, a 660 winning percentage could do a whole lot in terms of, hey, how do you get those 4 or 5 more wins than the Toronto Blue Jays? Well, the Blue Jays are off playing teams like the Cubs, playing teams like the Tigers. The Red Sox are over here playing teams like the A's, playing teams like the Orioles. And again, I hate doing this, but it is the only path the Red Sox really have to being able to actually compete when they get to that actual point in the season. And obviously, they're going to need to continue that, and they can't just simply win that series, put themselves in a tie with the Toronto Blue Jays, and then be like, all right, yeah, we did our best here. We're just going to mail it in against the Tigers, right? We're going to get swept to finish out the year, and we'll call it a day. Now, they need to actually go in and they need to compete against the Tigers here at home, but that's another thing they've done really well, right? Half of these games remaining on the schedule here, a little bit less. It's just about half of these games are at home. The Red Sox have the 4th best winning percentage at home in the entire sport, and you need to be able to take advantage of that and get themselves to this postseason and potentially get themselves to this postseason by way of winning this division. Ultimately, I think as fans here, I just don't think we should get caught up totally in the idea that the Red Sox should take this division, right? I think it would be a really, really incredible thing for the Red Sox to do, but at this point, the odds are so low. It's going to take a little bit of a miracle here. And because of the way the Red Sox have played this season, it's no longer solely relying on what you're able to do on the field, right? It's kind of like that conversation you have when you're 2 or 3 spots back of a wild card spot, like the Rangers are right now, where they're behind the Guardians, who are behind the Yankees. It's not going to just take you winning baseball games. It's going to take the other teams losing baseball games. And that just ultimately comes down to dumb luck. And that's sort of the similar situation the Red Sox are in. Because they're 5 games out of the Toronto Blue Jays with 40 games left to play on the season, it ultimately is going to come down to how the Blue Jays perform. The Red Sox could go out there and they could win every single game between now and the end of the season, which would be, by the way, just absolutely incredible, right? Hey, Red Sox, let's try and do that, shall we? And the Blue Jays could win every single one of those games but 5, and they'd still win the division, right? So that's the problem that the Red Sox have right now. The problem is they're not just relying on themselves, they're relying on the bad luck of another team. So in my opinion, the focus should continue to be on the idea of the Red Sox making the wild card. And honestly, I think that should be their goal, right? The Red Sox have not made a postseason in 4 years, ladies and gentlemen. This is their 4th season without a postseason run here. Just get in, right? And then we'll figure out how to be division contenders and legitimate division winners next year. Let's start by taking some baby steps here and getting into the postseason. I'll be happy. I'll be happy if the Red Sox make a wild card team. The point of this video wasn't so much to get you guys hyped up and say, the Red Sox are winning the division, let's go, right? Kind of thing. It's more so, hey, this is still a possibility, right? And I don't want you guys to totally throw out the idea that the Red Sox are out of contention for this division and solely focus on the wild card, right? Let's just keep an eye. Both our eyes can be on the wild card, but maybe we side eye a little bit what this division's looking like when it comes to the end of September, when we're starting to get into those series with the Toronto Blue Jays and the Detroit Tigers. So ultimately what this means is the Red Sox are playing good ball. Right? The fact that we're in August having the conversation that there's still a possibility that the Red Sox could win a division, I think is ultimately a positive, right? I mean, whether or not they win it, obviously, is a different conversation, but when was the last time we had a conversation in August coming into September being like, hey, the Red Sox aren't totally out of this division thing? I think it's been a little bit, so that makes me happy in its own right, but Red Sox not out of this division race yet, and things could get pretty interesting based on their schedule, based on the Blue Jays schedule, and based on how the Red Sox have been playing against teams like they're facing over this next month. But that's just my opinion. So let me know in the comment section down below, is there any hope in hell that the Red Sox win this division? Are you sitting there saying, Corbin, what are we doing? Right? There's no way the Red Sox can take over the Blue Jays right now. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on these videos as well. Helps them out a ton. Means a lot to me. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the red seats.